because I've grown up listening to your music in the 80s in India. I used to find these tapes, these little import tapes,
Oh,
and
yes, yes, yes.
it was like the soundtrack to my growing up. The John
Happy
Lawton
days, mate.
years.
Fantastic.
Absolutely love it. I remember watching an old VHS of, I think it was one of your shows in Budapest.
Uh-huh.
And I distinctly remember your guitar solo, and I was all of 15 at that time and absolutely blown away
Oh, that's marvelous.
watching you do all your stuff with one hand and the trills and
Yeah,
all that.
yeah. Oh, that's great, my friend.
So truly an honor, Mick.
Ah, well, thank you very much, mate. At least we're here to talk about it, aren't we?
Absolutely. So you guys are back on the road. You did a few shows in Finland a couple of months ago.
Well, yeah, we did a we headlined two UK festivals
Hmm.
where bands had dropped out, so we just took their place. Um, and then we did five shows in Finland, and then recently we just been in the studio with Jay Ruston, who did our last album, Living the Dream, as a
Hmm.
producer,
Yeah.
and we just recorded a new album, and all the music is over in LA now, being mixed. So the new album's on the horizon. So happy days.
Fantastic, fantastic. And what was it like going back on the road after 2 years of COVID? And what was that like?
Well, the first show was in actually in Wales,
Hmm.
on top of a mountain called the Stillhouse Festival. And you know what? It was emotional on so many levels for me.
Yeah,
One, that we were actually allowed to go and play again, be together again, and the audience were showing their love constantly because they were so happy to be there. Um, and we just had a great time. But to me, it was especially on an emotional level, very, very powerful because the passing of our previous members, playing those songs with all that emotion happening, there was a tear in my eye. It was a on many levels, it was very emotional for me. And then we stopped the show and we went down the ego ramp and we broke out a bottle of Jack Daniels and toasted everyone that departed from the Heap camp and that were in heaven, hopefully making a Heap band up there.
yeah, I know that'll be some band up there, right?
Yeah, it will be, mate. It will be, yeah. And so yeah, and we did that. So that again was another emotional level. So it was. I have to say, it's a show that will live with me forever.
Yeah, I can
For those
imagine
reasons.
what it must have been like. Coming to 50 years, you just put out a box set, 50 years of
Mm.
Uriah Heep. I think it's got 23 CDs, a vinyl, and it's got a whole bunch of other stuff. What was that like putting that box set together? I'm sure it's your whole life's work, right? So,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
was that whole thing down memory lane like?
Well, I've got to be honest with you. BMG, the record company, approached me with the idea, and I said absolutely great because we'd love to celebrate the 50th anniversary
Hmm.
in that form with a box set, and they were very nice because they only own the early years basically, and so they had to go and lease it from other record companies. So there was a lot of work went into it to make it a full item, but I insisted it had to be that, and
Yeah.
they were great. They came on board and did a wonderful job with it. But
Hmm.
what it did for me was I don't normally play our music at all. I write new stuff all the time, and I try to channel my energy into that. And but with this, I was forced to actually listen to it all, and go through it all. And you know what? I was blown away. I thought, well, this is great. Some of these songs on Dynamite, the band's on fire there. That's a great solo. That's a great this. And I honestly sat there with a big smile on my face that never left. It was just a great roller coaster ride musically through my career. And
Yeah.
it's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and was it the four of you who got together? Was it you, Ken, and was Lee around when this whole thing was being curated?
Yeah, yes. Ken was around, of course, and Lee
Hmm.
was around.
Hmm.
Everyone kind of had their input and say where necessary. So yeah, they were both very involved.
Hmm.
Although the passing of Lee, of course,
Hmm.
happened. I think before it was released, and Ken. The last time I saw Ken was actually on doing a video on on YouTube or something, the unboxing of the 50th anniversary box set, and he was just, you see the joy in his face when he was doing it. I have to say, I didn't think he looked particularly well because he looked very, very thin. But little did I know, days later, he was no longer with us, and it was
Yeah.
absolute shock, and I've been kind of numb ever since, because I am, as people keep telling me, last man standing, and there's some comfort in that, but there's also some uncomfortable feelings that come with it.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. But tell me, does it have any B-sides, any bootlegs, any unreleased stuff as well in the box set?
Not particularly, no, no. We didn't really go that route because we got to do a lot of research to find all that stuff. It's really funny. I think everything that I rejected or the band rejected has been released in the end. You can't stop it because fans want to know.
Yeah, yeah,
I was always of the mind ages ago that if it was on the cutting room floor, it was on there for a reason. But I've mellowed probably with age and thought, well, some of it the fans see it in a different light, and they see it grow as a song maybe from the version that was left on the cutting room floor. So
yeah.
anyway, I've softened, and if there's more to come, then I'll be more than happy to put it out.
Yeah, and these are all the discs, the remastered. Is the Andy Pierce remastered them, right?
So yes, he did. Yes, he did a very good job, I have to say. Yeah.
And the artwork as well, is it all the original what Roger Dean had done?
Well, Roger Dean actually came to the table, and he did some. He did two of our most famous albums, which was Dimmys and Wizards and Magician's Birthday, and he did reworked artwork for both those albums, which was great.
Yeah,
Really lovely.
fantastic.
So Roger was great that he came on board with that, and he did a similar thing when we released Sea of Light. I think on our 20th anniversary or something,
Yeah,
and he came on board for that. So he's one of the good guys.
I can imagine. But tell me, what value do you think a box set has in an era like today, where it's all about streaming? I mean, for a fan like me, in a sense, it gives me a certain. I feel like a completist, right? If I buy I have the albums, I have the vinyl, but then to
Yeah.
have all of it again, it gives me a feeling of being a completist. But what value do you think a box set has in when essentially all the world's a playlist today? So
Yeah, and I understand, with the streaming side of things, but we try and buck against certain things in life. um, the streaming, has its place, and it's never going to go away. So you have to embrace it.
yeah,
But I think also you have to um, stand by your guns and do something that you feel is really, really cool. And I think there's a boutique market now for vinyl and things like that, and boxes and things like that, because it's tactile, isn't it? You can pick it up,
yeah,
read it, get information you wouldn't get out of streaming. You get who played on it and who wrote it, and all those extra things that mean so much to the music lover, if you like. And I'm one
yeah.
of those, so I always look at it from that standpoint.
Yeah, and there's a booklet that accompanies this. I think it's a 60
Yes,
page
a
or 70
booklet with
page
lots of
book.
pictures and things maybe haven't been seen before, and stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, they,
Yeah,
they really they really came to the table. BMG, they did a great job.
it's incredible because I've been looking through the internet trying to find pictures of your shows in India in the 80s. I've heard so much about it.
All right, yeah, they were great times. We had some great fun there. Yeah,
What
yeah.
was that like? I think you came here first in 83, right?
Yes. The funny thing is, from what I remember coming from an American tour with Def Leppard, I think it was, and we were on and they were the biggest things of sliced bread out there. They were huge, and we had a top 40 album with the Bombernog, so it was a heavy package, and we played a festival, and I can't remember where the festival was, somewhere like San Diego or something. And as each band went on, there was a big firework display, huge, and it just got a bigger firework display as you went up the bill. So it was just immense. It was just an amazing spectacle on all levels. I think Motley Crue might have been playing. It was many bands. It was a really great festival, and our next show was in Mumbai, and I thought, well, I'll go down to see how the guys are getting on. We'll go down, and we went down. It was just a field with um, which looked like four sticks over a stage with scarves, and I think two or three lights. And I looked at the mixing desk. It was like the old BBC mixing desks from the old days, from the
Yeah.
40s, with one big knob in the middle. So that tickled me, I have to say, going from there to there. But as Heap is, we put on a show anywhere we are. And also, I had to do an interview when I was down there, and I can remember the interviewer saying, "Look, you're an international band. You play all over the world. What have you brought to India for this time?" And I said, "What can we expect? What extravaganzas basically is trying to find out,
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I've got to be honest with you. Probably on and off is about as far as we can do it at the moment." Because there was no other area we could go to. It was so basic.
Yeah.
But we went out and we did the show, and it was marvelous. The people's faces, the joy that was from the band and the crew,
Yeah.
and the audience, the whole lot. Yeah, even the promoters. I think
Yeah.
the promoter was a guy called Vikram Singh, I think his name was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and marvelous, and it continued like that all the way through. It was very basic, very back to the roots, but very enjoyable on that.
Yeah,
spiritual, if you like.
I think you did 4 cities, right? I think you came to the city I'm in now, which is the southern part of India, a city called Chennai, Madras.
Yes, we did Madras. Yeah, I think we also did. I'm not sure. We did Bangalore at that time, or did we come back and do Bangalore?
I think you came back in 2006 and did Bangalore.
Bangalore, was that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Bangalore was memorable because we were playing the show, and this, I could only say, drugged up hippie jumped on stage, and the police with their batons, they're not very polite with those things, are they? And they started bashing him like this. So the only thing he could do was bite onto Pete Golby, our singer's back.
Ah, that was the incident. Okay.
And he bit onto his back. So so he had something to hold on to, basically, while he was getting pummeled. And power to Pete, he sang the entire song without missing a beat, with all this going on, hanging off him. So it was quite a spectacle, and because I'm playing guitar, going, "What the hell's going on?" But it was something, of course, will always remain in their memory. But then, of course, a human bite is almost worse than an animal bite. So Pete had to go down to the hospital and get a tetanus injection and stuff. But yeah, very funny moment. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember I read about it somewhere, and for the life of me, I never knew whether it was a true story or not. And
it's very true. Very true. We haven't really, to be honest, we haven't stopped talking about it since.
Ridiculous. What a story. But, coming back to the band, Mick, does it frustrate you sometimes that, Heap never got the recognition it deserved among the big four, as it were, among Sabbath, Purple, and Zepp?
Which never really bothered me, because we've always cut our own stone, if you like. We've always, we sold 40 million albums. How many do you need to sell to be one of the big boys? You know what I mean? We did it, but we did it quietly. We didn't do it with all the hoo-ha, perhaps.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bother me at all. No, we play in 62 countries around the world. Sold 40 million albums, over 40 million albums.
Yeah.
What's not to like?
Yeah, absolutely. Because
what's to be upset with?
Yeah. Because personally, when I started listening to hard rock back in the early 80s, Uriah Heep were one of the first bands that I discovered. And for me, it's, I listen to more Uriah Heep than I do Led Zeppelin. So, but just reading about it, and especially with David Byron, as a vocalist, I thought, he was absolutely and so was John Lawton in the later years. But somehow, you don't get spoken about in the same breath as, Paul Rogers or Ian Gillan. So
those two vocalists, you're talking about world-class vocalists, David Byron was amazing. His range was immense. He had a great tonality to his voice, good timbre to his voice. And the thing about David was, lots of singers treat the song as a vehicle for their voice. Well, Dave used to live inside the song, and I think that's why so many people connected with him.
Yeah,
when they heard his vocal performances, that's a big difference. And John Lawton had a set of pipes bar none. He was the Tom Jones of rock and roll, basically.
Incredible.
You know,
What a voice. What a voice. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he had a really powerful voice, and it never let him down over the years. I did so much stuff with John
Hmm?
outside of Uriah Heep. You know, we did a movie together called Love.net. We on Miramar Films. We did lots
Yeah.
of. I went and played with him in Bulgaria when he wanted me to go along and guest with him and stuff. So we had a good friendship outside of Heep, which is really cool.
Yeah. But tell me, Mick, how long did it take for Heap to kind of find its sound? Because I remember listening to a song, I think it was from 1968 when you were Spice. I can't remember the name of the song, but I remember thinking it was very Beach Boys. Um so how long did it take to get from there to kind of, the harder sound of Heap?
Yeah, well, from there we in Spice we were a four-piece.
Mm-hmm.
So when we went into the studio as Spice and we started hearing our original songs back, I felt that we needed to embellish that with a keyboard, and it would be really good. And I was a big Vanilla Fudge fan, and I loved the Hammond organ of Mark Stein, and
Yeah.
he was a marvelous player. And so we needed to get somebody in to do that. And of course, Paul Newton, our bass player, had been in the band with the Gods with Ken Hensley, and so he invited him over. He heard the songs. He said, "That's it, I'm in." You know, he loved it from that moment on.
Mm-hmm.
And so the template of the music changed because there's five of us instead of four now, and so we decided to change the name of the band from Spice to Uriah Heep. And then as a band, it was a bit of a bleed over from Spice, and I have to explain this. Spice, we were called Spice because there's many spices in the culinary world, isn't there? And we didn't want our music to just be one genre. We wanted to be touch our toe in every one.
Yeah.
And as Spice, we used to do that. So the bleed over went to Uriah Heep. So that's why on our first album, Very Heavy, Very Humble, there's a bit of a blues song, a bit of a rock song, a bit of a folk song, a bit of a jazz
Correct.
song. There's a bit of everything in there. So to answer your question, I think the growth from there went to Salisbury, where we put our toe in the progressive rock side of things
Yeah.
with the title track Salisbury. But then when we went to Look at Yourself, we actually found out where we wanted to be. And that was a straight ahead rock band. And that's where we kind of developed our sound. And then we refined it with Demons and Wizards. That went onto the world stage and everything exploded
Yeah,
for us.
yeah,
Yeah.
incredible. And what was the role of Jerry Braun in shaping the sound of the band? How much of a role or an influence does the producer play? He's worked with you on, I think, most of the big albums through the 70s, right?
In terms of Jerry Brown, I mean, as a manager and a producer, he believed in the band, so that was the first instance. He did put his money where his mouth is, on advertising when with the album
Yeah,
covers and everything else, and put us on a wage. Although it was very very low wage, but hell, we were doing what we loved, so we didn't care. And then after a while, he wanted his money back, so we were just pushed out, and to the point where the wheels were falling off, because we're
yeah,
doing 2 albums a year, 9-month tour, world tours. I mean, there's one point we came out from a UK tour, finished a show, drove overnight, went to the studio, worked overnight, then got on a plane to Chicago to do another 3-month tour. So that's the sort of pressure we were under. So I think that had he had not foresight, but if he could looked at the big picture rather than the small picture and just pushing and pushing, I think a lot of the bad things that happened to the band would never have happened,
hmm,
because no attention was given to the individuals or the band or the family or whatever, or even their health. It was
yeah,
just pushed out too hard. But never
yeah,
mind, that's another story. So, but it is the one thing I can say about Jerry, I don't think he contributed a lot to the music at all, other than he really did allow us to go in any area we wanted to go.
hmm, hmm,
So he was very supportive in that manner. So we could say, for instance, at Salisbury, we want a 27-piece brass and woodwind section on it. Right. And next week you had John Fiddy to conduct it, and we're in
yeah,
the studio doing it. It
yeah,
was done.
yeah,
So that's where he was very very beneficial. I think a lot of the credit for the actual sounds and things we produced on audio formats would probably go down to Peter Gallen, who was the engineer, but he
and
was a lot more than the engineer.
hmm,
But
hmm,
Jerry was more of an executive producer. He'll say, okay, that one.
yeah, yeah.
Or that. But he not really that hands-on.
Hmm. But listening to the early albums, right? Especially like Salisbury, the title track. It's an epic. It's a long song. Did it work for radio back in the day? I mean, sometimes I'm quite surprised that you guys made such long songs, given that it might not have been radio friendly back in the day, right?
Yeah, no, it wasn't radio friendly, I have to say. I mean, basically, our um, thinking was we're just going to make a great album.
Hmm.
And if there happened to be a single on it, fine. But we never put any pressure on us to get a single or something for radio. It was far from our mind, and I think a lot of bands in that era were. And I think actually when you, going back to one of your other comments about the big four, and why we're not revered, I think a lot of those other bands had bigger hit singles than we probably did, because we stayed true to our original art form, is to just get a great album together that
Yeah.
that traveled and had some great music in it, but it didn't conform to a 3-minute song.
Yeah. So how do you balance that, Mick, when there's pressure from a label to write like a Free Me or a Come Back to Me, versus doing what you want to do, which could be a 6-8 minute song, and then you extend that out when you play live. How do you balance that between commercial requirement, what the label wants, and what you want to do as a musician and the direction of the band?
It is very difficult, but the short answer: to keep the studio door shut and locked. It can't come in then. No, no. In all seriousness, you see, the thing is, when we started to have a bit of success with a single,
Mhm.
record companies being record companies. I mean, for instance, our first single that really took off really would be Easy Living, I would assume. And that took us on the world stage, and it was marvelous. It was everywhere. And so then from that moment on, record companies are saying, we need another Easy Living. We need another. But
Exactly.
there isn't another Easy Living. You've got to find it from somewhere else. And then those pressures start coming into you. And consequently, you don't have the same artistic freedom that maybe you had in the early days.
Yeah, but also Mick, as a guitar player, if you listen to a lot of the albums, I mean, you're always there. You step in when required. Is it hard for you to kind of hold back as a guitar player and not want to indulge yourself a little bit?
I've always I have a strong viewpoint on that, and I don't think a song should be the vehicle for a guitar player to play his latest licks in. It doesn't work
Yeah.
for me. I think you have to play everything within the song and enhance it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I would never do that, because I think you're detrimental to what the song is all about. I mean, you can take it into another area. Yes, that works, providing it comes back in a very natural way. But you just can't, just to play over everything is just futile in my mind.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me, because fundamentally I'm a songwriter first.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always look at the song, and I just play what the song requires. I don't need to show
Yeah.
people what I can do. I don't have that side of me or that ego to do it, to be
Yeah,
honest.
because I recall listening to some of the songs and just wishing there was a little more guitar or there was a little more of Mick, in that song. You know.
Yeah, that could possibly be, but I think that's in the moment that you do things, it's easy to come up with those comments, say, from my point of view, when
Yeah.
I stand back and listen back to it. But
Yeah.
when you're immersed in it, you think, okay, why should I be playing over that great verse or that great chorus? Why
Yeah.
should I be diverting the listener over here when that is so good? And that's kind of how I look at it. I
Yeah.
mean, I did expand. I mean, Salisbury's got 3 very, very long solos on, but it had a reason to. It was very musical, and it had a really real reason to it,
Yeah.
and a real drive to it. Whereas something like Musician's Birthday, again, the drum and guitar fight, if you like,
Yeah. I remember that.
good over evil. I mean, that was done in one take. Me and Lee just come back from the pub, say, "Look, let's do it," and we did it, and that was it. And it was marvelous, because it captured all the spontaneity of what we were all about. And so there's a time to do it, and for me, there's time not to do it.
Yeah. But do you think songs like that will work today, Mick? Do you think a Salisbury or even a Very Heavy, Very Humble as an album will work in today's scenario?
I'm not sure, to be honest. It's a very, very good question. I'm not sure if it would stand up today. it might do for some people, but as far as the masses, which you need to tap into, I'm not sure that would still stand up.
Yeah.
But saying that, a good song is a good song and stands the test of time. That's why we still play Gypsy on stage from the first album. A
Yeah.
great song which wasn't written by the band was "Come Away Melinda" on the first album.
Yeah, I
It's a
didn't know
beautiful,
it was a Harry Belafonte cover.
yeah, it's a beautiful song, and the reason that's there is we used to do it as Spice, and David and I went down this folky old, can't remember the name of the club now, smoky old folk club in London somewhere, and we saw Tim Rose doing it, playing it. And when we heard the song, we went, "Oh, we got to go and do that." And we went back home and worked it up and played it. And of course, Dave, it was so suited to David's voice. It was magical. It was magical. And so when I say that maybe the album might not stand up, but there's certain songs that certainly will stand up in today's market.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. But Mick being the only constant in the band from 1969, how have you managed to keep the sound alive despite this, so-called revolving door of people?
Yeah. I think basically that is down to my passion for it, number
Mm-hmm.
one,
Mm.
and the fact that I've always from the first album, we sort of set a template, if you like, for what Uriah Heep should sound like. They should have hammered organ. Now, the reason I like the hammered organ is because it can be romantic, it can be very aggressive, it can be rocky, it can be
Yeah,
jazzy, it can be bluesy, it can be all genres of music. So it suits what we were doing. So that's the first thing. Also, a distinctive lead vocal is very important. Also, good lyrical content is very important. But also our harmonies. We used to have 5 people that sing,
yeah,
and we utilized our harmonies in a way in the early days, whereas almost an instrument rather than just singing sweetly along to the chorus. And I think that gave us our identity. And then you put on top of that wah wah guitar, and you've kind of got, so any song that we put all those elements in sounds like Uriah Heep
yeah, yeah,
at the end of it. So
yeah,
I've kept that template all the way through because there's no reason to change. There's no use to change to chase other genres because other people are doing it first, and you can only be second best. So let's stay with what we know and what
yeah.
we start, and that's my belief.
Yeah, incredible. I want to ask you about, one album and a couple of songs from back in the day. What are your thoughts on Wonderworld? Uh, because I've read interviews where, I don't think the band rates it particularly high. Personally, as a fan, I like the album, and I've always found it a bit strange that I like the album, but the band doesn't really. Seem to
Yeah,
care
there's
much
some good
about the
songs
album.
on it. I'll tell you the honest truth. We recorded it in Munich. Got the name of the studio escapes me. It may come back. Anyway, it was, but we'd just come off the road. So really, normally we come off, we'll do a tour
Hmm.
and record in England. So we'll be at home. This was coming off a tour, going to the studio in another country, and all the naughty bits that happened on the road continued in the studio.
Why
So
Germany though? Why did you guys end up in Germany?
Musicland Studios, yeah, I remembered it. Musicland Studios, yeah. It was a good studio, had a great reputation. Lots of bands have played there and everything else.
Hmm.
So it was a revered studio at the time in Europe, and I think that's why we chose it. And it's not that too far from England anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, we went over there. So it's difficult to work in those circumstances because we weren't going home to our families or anything else. We were still out on tour.
Hmm.
That's the first thing. The second thing was we actually, I think we're at the end of the whole process, and I don't know whether I went to a friend's house or a hotel. I think it was a friend's house, and I stayed up all night working on guitar parts, like you just said, play a
Yeah.
bit more. So I thought, well, this kind of calls for it in the sense. So I worked all these parts out, and I went into the studio in the morning, and there's no one there. And I went, what's going on? And Jerry Brown and Ken Hensley decided that it finished and flew home. And I was still in Germany with all these great guitar parts,
And you
going
had no
nowhere.
idea that they had gone back home.
No idea. I was told when I walked through the door of the studio, it had enough. We're going home. Was it? Was it what I was told? And I went, oh. So as it ended that way, there was always that little tinge of unfinishedness to the album
Yeah,
that I would have done. And I think everyone, feels that way.
yeah.
We could have done a little bit more and embellish things a little bit more and make them better. But we didn't get to that point. I think because of all the nonsense that was happening around us,
Yeah.
coming from the road to the studio, I think they'd had enough and they just went home.
Yeah, because I thought very underrated album, but
There's some good songs on it. In fact, we
yeah.
covered a few of them on. We did an album called Acoustically Driven, where we had a quartet, a string quartet. We had a pedal steel player and 3 girl singers, alien pipe player. It was marvelous. It was a great, and we even got Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull to come over and play a couple of solos with us and songs with us.
Oh yeah, I remember that song. Yeah, it was called Circus, right?
Yeah, with Circus, and that off of the Wonderworld, I think we did Shadows in the Wind.
Oh yeah.
And we did Wonderworld. I mean, we actually tapped into that album and presented it in a way that maybe we didn't quite capture on the original recording. So it was
Yeah.
a cool thing to do.
Beautiful album. I want to quickly talk about another favorite song of mine, which I heard was actually 3 different songs that came together. July Morning.
Yes, well, July Morning was a unique song to begin with, simply because I was off. I had the flu, and I couldn't go to rehearsals, but the guys carried on, and they were writing these 3 different pieces of music, going in different areas. And if you listen to July Morning, the riff could go in anywhere
Yeah.
direction, the verse can go in any direction, the chorus can go in any direction. There are all those elements that they were working on as separate songs. And then when I came back in a few days later, having got rid of the flu, thank goodness, I walked in and heard the 3 sections. Said, guys, we should marry these. They're all in the same key, and nobody's actually realised it. I said they'll fit perfectly together. And I said, then we put an intro on and an outro, and I think we've got something magical. And that's what happened. Ken had been working on these parts with David himself, and it's only when I come up with the idea that we actually married them together, and it became a big song for us, And of course,
Yeah.
David's vocals, again, world class.
Yeah.
He's right in the middle of it, and he's delivering it so well. And then of course there's the high bit in the middle, and I think it's probably July Morning would be our Deep Purple Child in Time, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to look at the comparison, yeah.
Yeah, incredible. You spoke earlier about, the number of tours you guys used to do. I read an interesting story about you playing Top of the Pops. I think
Yes.
you had to go. It was Can you tell that story, the Top of the Pop story?
Yes, I think it was a song called Wise Man, with John Lawton singing. And what happened was that was such a big show in England, and it was like the shop window for Europe. So
Yeah.
it was huge to do. And we had a break, and I was living in America at the time. So I caught a flight from, my family were out in America. I caught a flight from London Heathrow. I think it was out to Chicago, Dallas, El Paso, where I was living in New Mexico. And I did that flight. I met my wife and my kid at the time, and we got in the car and we're driving home, and it was about an hour and a half drive, maybe an hour's drive. But halfway there, the car broke down in the middle of nowhere. It was on a highway. I'm just sitting there waiting. We didn't know what to do, and then the police came, and they towed us to this place called Anthony in New Mexico, which is a 1-horse town. Trust me, it's 1-horse town. The hotel we went into, booked into, they had metal beds, and we slept. Put it this way, we slept with all their clothes on and the light on. This was only crawlers coming. It was not a nice place. Anyhow, I got up in the morning, first thing, and the reason they took us there was a garage across the road from the hotel. So first thing, garage opened at 8 o'clock. I'm there. We need our car fixed. Thank you very much. So I said, that's fine. Well, as I'm talking to the guy, there's a lady running across from the hotel, and she's running across to me. Mr. Box, the phone call. And I said, you're kidding me. Nobody knows where I am. I don't even know where I am. And she said, the phone call from England. So I thought, well, if England, okay. So I went back and picked up the phone. It was Jerry Bron's wife, Lillian Bron, had tracked me down.
Wow.
How she did that, I'll never know. But she promised, and I believe there'd been some killings of police in the police force there. So she promised to donate to the families some money if the police can get me in the car and take me back to El Paso to fly back to London and do the show. She said, we got Top of the Pops. I said, great. I said, put a cardboard effigy up of me. Put a picture of me. I don't want to come back. I don't want to come back. She insisted. And the police started. And as in America, as only an American can do, so they don't send one car, they send like 6. So there's 6 cars with all the going, and the pressure was on me. So wow. I said to my wife again, I said, look, I'll go and do this. I'll be back. Don't worry. So they waited for the car and then drove home. And then I went back. I did El Paso, Dallas, Chicago, London, Heathrow. Got off the plane, went to the studio, did the song, went back to the hotel when I had room service and trade like this. And I actually fell asleep with my head in the food. Jesus. Woke up in the morning, went, I had a quick shower to get all the mess off me. Went back and did London Heathrow, Chicago, Dallas, El Paso, and was met hour home. And then I got home and I spent the time home. But I was burnt out. I'm jet lagged and come into it. I didn't know what leg I was on. But anyhow, it was one of those. And the funny thing is, when it went out and was broadcast, it just goes past my head like this. Like this. There's the camera. That's all you saw of me.
This was one song, right? You guys did
one song, 3.5 minutes. Gone. So all that for that, but never mind. It served its purpose.
but you guys have done some interesting shows, right? You are the first band, I think, to play in Moscow.
Yes, that came about because we had a promoter called Laszlo Hegedus, who was Hungarian, and we had a saying in the band, because lots of bands in those days were just playing America, Canada, and mainland Europe, and they wouldn't do anything else. But we always said, look, if the people can't come to the music, we'll take the music to the people. So we went out and played Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia before it came the Czech Republic and Slovakia. We played Hungary. We played all these places, East Berlin before the wall came down. We went to all those areas with our music, and it took forever to get there. But the reward was seeing people's faces, and it was heartwarming, because they never thought they'd ever see the band play. So it was a great thing to do, and I think it was the right thing to do. So over the years, we've been doing that, and we've almost become part of these countries' folklore now, musical folklore. Yeah. So Laszlo Hegedus kept saying, I'm going to have to get to Russia because you don't know how big you're there, how big you are there. And we're going, oh, don't be silly, And he applied every year and just got niet. And then in December 87, he applied and he got back a yes. And we went, oh my word, it's on. And then Glasnost sent us over a certificate with the signed invite and everything. It's hanging up on my wall now. And we went over there, and it was just amazing. We played 180,000 people over a 10-day period. He was right. We didn't know how big we were. It was like, if you like the Beatles, if you want to analogy, it was madness. We'd walk into restaurants, everyone would stand up and applaud. There'd be string quartets playing one of our songs. We took over something like 10,000 photographs that actually became currency, that people were bartering with them for a hat or a chicken or something, or a plug. It was immense. But the best show we had, because I have to tell you this very quickly. The audience, they were so scared of having that many people in one place. The audience were 30 meters away from the stage. And they were in these virtually tiered upwards like this, but then locked in, and then soldiers facing them with guns. They're meant to be enjoying themselves. And of course, we come out, we can't even see the audience. So we think, oh, okay, we'll break down the barriers here. So we got Phil, our keyboard player, to keep playing, Lee keeping time on something, and then Trevor, myself, and Bernie ran out pushed through the police and waved at all the crowd. And of course, that broke the ice. And slowly the police turned around and watched the show because they knew there wasn't going to be any trouble. Everyone was just having a great time. And that's what we did every night. But the greatest show of all was we did one sound check in the afternoon, and we were followed by, I can't say the three initials, but I think you'll understand, everywhere we went. And so we got the bus drivers and paid them off and said, look, go around the city and fill up your buses with anybody who wants to come to a free concert and see Uriah Heep. And they did. And they brought all these bus loads through. And then all the crowd for that sound check was at the very front. It's the first time we could see the white of their eyes. And they were going crazy, a free concert. It was mad. But nobody could stop it because we put the wheels in motion, so to speak. And they had the greatest night. And we did for the sound check, we did the entire show.
Yeah.
For them.
Fantastic.
And then they went out, and then we did the evening one with all the, the people in the cages, like, if you like. So it was amazing. But it was a great thing to do, and it was my favorite show of the
I can some amazing experiences. I also read that you played to some inmates at, I think, a prison cell in in Germany.
In Rottenburg in Germany, yeah, in 2008, 24th of July. The picture's on the wall here. Yeah, that was we were playing a festival, the Rottenburg Festival. No, what was it called? Excuse me for a minute. I've got it.
Yeah.
Let me see what it is. I think the Rock of Ages Festival. I think it was just down the road, and the warden of the prison got in touch with us and said, "Look, you're playing a festival down the road. Would you like to come and play for the inmates?" And we've never turned anything down. Heap, so we said, yeah, well, our gear's going to be there. Why not? So we went down there. There's a lot of world press, of course. And we played in the exercise yard. But the two things occurred to me. One, well, hang on, everyone in prison can't be a Heap fan. Surely. If they are, that's incredible, but I don't think so. And the other thing is, I said to the warden, we've got some songs we're playing in a set that really, maybe we should think about. And he said, well, what are they? I said, well, Too Scared to Run is about running away from the police, but Free Me. I said, we've got a number of songs that the titles are a bit dicey in this situation. He said, play them all. I said, okay. So anyway, we went on stage, and everyone was in pockets around the exercise yard, like gangs, if you like. Some wouldn't come out of their cells in case they got injured. But eventually they all came down to the stage like this, and at the front of the stage. So you had the warden, the jailers, and all the prisoners, all side by side, singing songs with a fist in the air. It was an amazing sight. But I have to tell you, on Free Me, the chorus is "Free me from your spell," of course. But I said to Bernie that night, you have to sing "Free me from your cell." And he did, of course, and it went right over their heads, of course, but us, we were laughing their heads off.
Brilliant. Did you play Lady in Black?
Yeah, and they were singing. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing. It was an amazing event. I mean, it's just very weird how it was basically a male prison, so it was just very weird how it started off so sparse and ended up with everyone united. The power of music, my friend. The power of music got us to Moscow, because out in Moscow they were buying our albums for 2 months' wages, and at the risk of, if they found out, they were being sent to Siberia. So music has this energy to get through all that stuff. and make lives, enrich people's lives.
Yeah, and I think that holds true for the times we live in as well, right? The value of music in times like this, whether it's the voice of protests or whether it's just getting through hard times like COVID, I think the value of music is tremendous.
It's immense. It's absolutely immense. You're 100% right. And I get calls and emails and texts all the time, and WhatsApp messages and everything, and Instagram, all saying exactly that. Thank you for the music. It's getting us through these difficult times. And if I'm feeling down, I just put one of your albums on. I'm good again. It's marvelous, marvelous what
Yeah,
music can do.
yeah. I was thinking about Lady in Black, and it's amazing. It's such a simple song, two chords, and the the chorus doesn't have any words.
Well,
But
it's two chords, a thousand words, and a chant.
yeah,
It's a very unique song. It was off our album Salisbury,
yeah.
and it didn't do anything when Salisbury was released. It didn't do a thing at all. It had no impact whatsoever. But about 4 years later, a DJ in Germany picked up on it and played it, and it just exploded from there. And we for that particular song, I think we got 2 Golden Lion Awards, which was what you'd call Grammy Awards, I suppose,
Yeah,
in America.
yeah,
Marvelous, and it's got its own legs now.
yeah,
We start playing, everyone sings, and it's a great way to end a show, whereby everyone's singing united, and the smiles are immense, right?
yeah.
It's great.
I was at Wacken in 2019. I do a lot of music photography, and I was watching your set at Wacken in 2019,
Oh
and
yeah,
I
yeah,
think you ended with, I think, Lady in Black or July Morning. I
yeah.
can't remember now.
Well, and that's a very, very heavy metal
Yeah,
festival, as you know, right?
yeah.
And we were actually discussing, shall we, shan't we?
Oh, really?
And we said, oh yeah, because it's a very acoustic song, nice and light, and they've had 7 hours of full on, and us to come out with ding ding and ding ding and ding. I'm not sure it's going to work, but we took the chance, and of course everyone sang it. It was marvelous. It was a great feeling again. It just shows you these things. Sometimes you can read too much into them, because a good song's a good song, no matter what it's played.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But tell me, Mick, 2022, you have, when does the album come out?
The new album, we're not sure yet, because it's all
Mm.
down to the record label, of course.
Okay.
It's in LA now, being mixed, and then we've got to find a title and get artwork together. That can take a few months.
Hmm.
And then next year, when we do start touring, we'll start touring the 50th anniversary, which we couldn't do 2 years ago. So, although it'll be 52 years, we still call it the 50th anniversary. And we need to tour that. And then I think that the record label, being business people, will decide where to insert that to get the
Hmm.
maximum effect out of it.
Yeah.
But the good thing is it's in the bag now, and we're very happy with it. So it's cool.
Beautiful. But will you guys be doing any of the big festivals next year in Europe?
We certainly hope so. I mean, all the festivals that we were meant to do 2 years ago now
Yeah.
are all in place next year. So, providing there's no surges or no mishaps, they should all take place, and we'll be doing the ones that we've already booked. Yeah.